What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Week 1 podcast of Move Those Chains. This is Episode 2. In Episode 1, we previewed the NFL season. This week, I am recapping all the Week 1 matchups that we watched this Sunday afternoon and Sunday Night Football. I'm recording this at the tail end of the Tampa Bay-Dallas Sunday Night Football game. There's only a few minutes left, so by the time I get to that game, should be final. It's looking all but final now. It's 19-3, Tampa Bay and Tom Brady. Doesn't look like he slowed down a bit in his age 45 season 23. So I want to start with Thursday Night Football when the Buffalo Bills took on the LA Rams in LA. The Bills took that one 31-10. It kind of felt like the Rams were a bit hungover from their last Super Bowl still. They didn't look like the same dominant team, although most pieces came back. It just didn't feel that they were a complete team outside of Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp had 13 receptions for 128 yards and a touchdown. So if you have him in fantasy and took him as the first wide receiver in your draft, good for you. I took him as well, so he did me a service. He had a touchdown, but on their running back Cam Akers, who I was very high on going into the season, he had 3 attempts for no yards, so that was kind of a shocker. He's coming back from an Achilles injury. However, I was expecting big things for him and a lot more touches, so we'll get to that. And then for the Bills, Josh Allen had a hell of a game, threw for almost 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. However, he did have 2 interceptions. And Stephon Diggs had 122 yards and a touchdown. Stephon Diggs, another receiver that's going in the first round of most fantasy drafts, and he is going to impress this season. And so will this offense. And then Jalen Ramsey, who most people tout as the best cornerback in the NFL, really. He got burned all game. He got 6 targets his way, and he actually allowed a perfect passer rating. That number speaks for itself. I don't know that I need to go deeper into that, but he did not look like the top cornerback in the league. However, I don't think that's a knock to him. I think he's going to come back next week and this season and kind of flip the script. I don't think he's going to be that bad corner that we saw that week. But yeah, I don't think this is any alarm for the Rams. However, for the Bills, this is only going to bolster their credentials as to why they're my Super Bowl pick. I mean, they came into Week 1 with they need to succeed this year. They're kind of a Super Bowl or nothing team. Josh Allen is hungry. Stephon Diggs is hungry. And yeah, I think they came out and looked really good in Week 1, and I was impressed with their performance, and I think they're ready for this upcoming season. So yeah, for the Sunday slate, let's start with New Orleans against Atlanta. The Saints took that one 27-26, and this one came down to the wire. Will Lutz for the Saints hit a game-winning field goal, and after the Saints came back from a 16-point deficit early in the fourth quarter. The Saints looked good. Jameis Winston didn't look bad, and Taysom Hill, who the tight end quarterback, probably the best rushing tight end in all of football, he scored a rushing touchdown, capping off a drive in which he already had 2 bomb rushes. So I think this attack is going to be something we see week in and week out. And then Michael Thomas had 2 touchdowns on the day. He looked good. He looked like he was healthy coming back from injury. He missed all of 2021 with, I think, foot and ankle injuries, and people questioned his energy level, whether he wanted to come back, whether he was trying to, his effort level, not his energy, effort. People questioned whether he was really trying to come back to play at the NFL level as quickly as he possibly could, or if he was just lollygagging a little bit. But I think this season he's going to prove everyone a little wrong. 2 touchdowns in his first game since 2020. And then Cleveland at Carolina. This game was a big game for Baker Mayfield, the new Carolina Panthers starting quarterback. He's spent the last 4 seasons in Cleveland as their starting quarterback through ups and downs, injuries and health. He's both struggled and had success there. He won them their first game in almost 2 full seasons. So I'm interested to see. I'm not a Browns fan, but I'm interested to hear what some Browns fans have to say about Baker because of the way he left. However, he didn't look bad today against Cleveland. He looked good. He threw for 235 yards and had a rushing touchdown. And he also threw a bomb touchdown to Robbie Anderson, a 75-yard touchdown, took the lid off the defense, and it was awesome to watch. The Browns took this one on a Cade York 58-yard game-winning field goal with time expiring, so that was a thriller down to the last whistle. For the Panthers, Christian McCaffrey had a touchdown. He went over the top on a goal line run, so he's looking a little healthier, getting back to the way he was a few years ago, and as y'all know, a healthy CMC is a force to be reckoned with. And then for the Browns, their 2 running backs, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, both had big games. Nick Chubb had 22 attempts for 141 yards. Kareem Hunt, 11 attempts, 46 yards, and a touchdown. So for fantasy owners, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, both big days. Next, we got the 49ers taking on the Chicago Bears. The Bears took this one 19-10, and the story of this game was really the weather. They were playing in a sloshed-out Soldier Field, raining from, I think, 2 hours before the game up until the last whistle blew. This was Trey Lance's first game as the official starter of the 49ers. He didn't have a great game, but I'm not sure that today was a true test because of the weather. I think the weather played a huge factor in this game for both sides. I think it was really hard to throw the ball, to catch the ball. You could tell the football was kind of slipping out of his hand when they slowed down the camera a little bit. You could tell that he wasn't capable of doing everything that we know Trey Lance is capable of just from watching preseason and film from both his college days and training camp. And then Justin Fields played well. I mean, he showed some promise heading into this season. I know that on our first podcast we said the Bears could be one of the worst teams in all of football, and I'm not sure that this win changed that because of the weather and it being Trey Lance's first game and other factors in this game. But Fields looked good. He threw for 2 touchdowns and an interception. He's a guy that's playing for his job. I mean, the Bears very well could end up with a top pick in this draft and going forward. So he's kind of playing for his job right now. So we'll see the rest of this season how he shows out and if this team can get pointed in the right direction. And then we got Pittsburgh. This is probably the game of the day. We got Pittsburgh and at Cincinnati. The Steelers took this one 23-20 in an overtime thriller. The story of this game was the kickers and Joe Burrow. We can start with Joe Burrow, though, because in regulation. So in the first quarter, Joe Burrow was sacked 3 times. The offensive line really couldn't stop the Steelers. Felt like T.J. Watt was getting home at will, and Cam Hayward, the Bengals O-line just couldn't do anything. He was sacked. Joe Burrow was sacked 3 times in the first quarter, and it was painful to watch. And then Joe Burrow also looked crazy rusty. He was hurt most of the preseason, so never got to play in any preseason action. So week 1 was his first real football action since the Super Bowl last year. Super Bowl in which he lost after a great performance, but loss is a loss. He looked incredibly rusty. He threw 4 interceptions on the day, 3 in the first half. The team turned the ball over 5 times in the game. So come fourth quarter, the only thing I was thinking about is how the hell are the Bengals still in this game? The with all those turnovers, you'd think that the Steelers were able to capitalize on field position and make Joe Burrow pay for his mistakes throughout the game, but you'd be wrong. The game it was 20 to 14 in the fourth quarter when the Bengals had the ball driving down the field with just a few minutes left, or with just under a minute left to go in the game. Joe Burrow drove the team down the field, and Jamar Chase caught a touchdown with time expiring. And when they went to kick the extra point, it would have been a game-winning extra point, Minka Fitzpatrick for the Steelers came off the edge and blocked the extra point, basically saving the day for the Steelers and sending it to overtime. And then in overtime, the kicker for the Bengals had the first shot at a game winner. And then, he had his first shot at the game winner. And the Bengals had a backup long snapper in. And because of a bad snap, McPherson missed the kick. It was decent snap. A decent hold. As good of a hold as you can get with a bad snap. The snap almost went over the holder's head. So, good job by him to give McPherson a shot at it. And then Chris Boswell, the kicker for the Steelers, had a shot at it, and he missed. He hit the left upright. And then as time expired later in overtime, Boswell had drilled the game winner. So it was almost the second tie of the day. One we'll get to in a second. But yeah, almost the second tie of week one, which I'm not sure has ever happened in the history of the NFL for as long as ties have been, I guess, a thing. So that game was an incredible game, a thriller, even though it was sloppy. So we'll see what Joe Burrow looks like the rest of the season. Again, same thing that we said with Trey Lance. I'm not sure that this week one performance is how we're going to remember the 2022 season for Joe Burrow. I think that this team could easily go like 6-2 in the first 8 weeks, and we'll completely forget that this week one matchup ever happened. So I look forward to how Joe Burrow responds, and I think he'll respond very well in week 2. We have the Philly playing at Detroit. I think we all thought Philly was going to steamroll over Detroit, but this Detroit team really has some heart, and Dan Campbell has really coached up an incredible team. If y'all watch Hard Knocks, you kind of see that from behind the scenes, and his speeches are incredible, and he really has passion for this team, and I think it's starting to rub off onto this Detroit Lions team as we see week in and week out. Regardless of the score, this team could roll over and kind of give up as we've seen before, but this year just feels a little bit different. In their last 6 weeks in 2021, they went 3-3, so I think that's going to carry over to this year, the fight in those close games. I mean, they're definitely a better built team this year. I mean, DeAndre Swift, their running back, is poised for a big season this year. In week 1, he had 15 attempts for 144 yards and a touchdown. So he's going to be key for them and this offense, as well with Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's going to be big as well. But the Eagles look good. I mean, they're trusting in Jalen Hurts this year. He's going to be their guy going forward. Their franchise quarterback. He didn't throw for a touchdown, but he ran for a touchdown, a cool bootleg run. They rushed for a few touchdowns. He threw for 243 yards. And then it kind of hurts me to say this, but the Eagles' defense played really, really well today. Ex-Giant James Bradbury had a pick six, so as a Giants fan, that one kind of sucked to see. And Darius Slay played well as well. Their whole DB core played really, really well, and they were fun to watch. I'm not gonna lie, even as a Giants fan, and I did want to see the Lions make that come all the way back, but I think Philly's gonna be a really, really good team this year, and I think they're gonna be hard to beat, especially if Jalen Hurts is what we all think Jalen Hurts can be. So let's get on to the Indianapolis Colts at Houston. This game was kind of a bore a little bit. I mean, the game ended in a tie, 20-20. O.J. Howard had 2 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor had a touchdown. And then the kicker for the Colts, Rodrigo Blankenship, missed the game-winning kick wide right in overtime. And then after the missed kick, the Texans had a chance to drive down the field. They had a 4th down and 3 with under a minute left in overtime, and instead they were right around the 50-yard line. And instead of going for it and taking their chances, they punted it away, and the Colts kneeled on it to end the game. So I guess a tie is not as good as a win, but not quite as bad as a loss. So I think it's all a coaching strategy, and yeah, we'll see how both teams respond. I mean, the Texans didn't look great. The Colts, Matt Ryan looked good. So this Colts team, I think they're gonna have. I hope they're gonna have some success this year. I know they're gonna have some success this year. I don't think they're gonna play down to a level like the Texans for the entirety of this season. Next up, we got the New England Patriots at Miami. Miami took this one 20-7. I don't think anyone was surprised by the end result. Tua actually played a good game. He had almost a 70% completion percentage, threw for 270 yards. The play that sticks out to me, Tua, so there were rumors this offseason, not even rumors, there was a video that came out of Tua underthrowing Tyreek in training camp. And in this game, Tua actually underthrew Tyreek on a route down the left side, and Tyreek basically turned around and mossed the Patriots defender and made a one-handed grab, and it was one of the catches of the day, in my opinion. So I think that's going to be a connection to watch. And then the other thing that stood out to me was after Jalen Waddle caught a touchdown, was that these wide receivers are so goddamn fast, and it's going to be so hard for defenses to stop this offense. And they're just good. This is going to be a good football team. Mike McDaniel is going to coach up a good game plan each and every week, so I'm excited for this Dolphins team after they had a great Week 1 performance against Bill Belichick's team. And also, it was cool to see Melvin Ingram, new linebacker they got in free agency this offseason. In one of the first few series of this game, he had a strip sack fumble, so it was a cool welcome to Miami moment for Ingram. And then let's move on to Baltimore at the Jets. I mean, this game was a blowout. I mean, for the majority of the game, it was 24-3. Or it was a blowout, 24-3, and then the Jets scored a garbage time touchdown. But Lamar Jackson threw for 3 touchdowns. 2 were downfield dots. He's coming off a disputed contract. Rumors came out hours before kick, or either hours before kick or yesterday, that the Ravens had offered him $250 million plus in contract, and he declined because he wants a fully guaranteed deal after, just like Deshaun Watson's contract. If Lamar Jackson keeps playing the way that he played in Week 1, I don't know how the Ravens don't offer him whatever he wants. I mean, it'd be brutal if you're a Ravens fan to see LJ playing for anyone else or anyone else that isn't wearing a purple jersey. So I'm excited to see what Lamar Jackson has to offer for the 2022 season, and he's going to show out for his contract. The other comparison I had for that, in baseball, Aaron Judge, in a similar situation for the New York Yankees, got offered a big contract, declined, and basically bet on himself to have an MVP caliber season, and obviously he's done that. I mean, he's on pace to break the Yankees' single season home run record, and is kind of chasing baseball history in chasing the home run record for a season. So we'll see how both of those guys end up. And then the final game in the early afternoon window was Jacksonville at Washington. Washington had this was actually an impressive game for both sides, in my opinion. Jacksonville showed out Trevor Lawrence. He played really, really well. James Robinson had 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing, 1 1 receiving touchdown. We didn't see as much of Travis Etienne as I thought we would. Maybe that's something that will kind of evolve throughout the season. Who knows? We'll see. Trayvon Walker, the number 1 overall pick from this past year's draft, played really well. So we'll see this Jaguars team. I'm sure they'll keep evolving this offense until they figure out a combination of pieces that works, whether it's Evan Ingram or Travis Etienne, or we'll see who becomes the primary target for Trevor Lawrence. The Commanders, their wide receivers are good. They looked really good today. Their 3 touchdowns all came from wide receivers. Terry McLaurin caught a bomb touchdown, and then Johan Dotson had 2 touchdowns, wide receiver out of Penn State. And then, he also, including the game winner with 1:46 left on the clock. The Jaguars couldn't go down the field and couldn't go down the field and come back from that. So that's all for the early window. Moving on to the late window. Let's start with the Chiefs at Cardinals. This game was over basically in the first quarter. Pat Mahomes, I'll just read the stat line. Pat Mahomes went for 360 yards and 5 touchdowns, hitting 9 different receivers throughout the game, which is ridiculous. Putting up 44 points in week 1 is really impressive, and the Cardinals, a couple of their touchdowns came late in garbage time, so the Chiefs defense also played really, really well. The Chiefs are going to be successful this year. I mean, we weren't sure how they were going to look without Tyreek Hill and that weapon and the speed, but they almost seemed more lethal without Tyreek Hill because you don't know where the targets are going. Whether it's Juju or Mardez Valdez-Scantling, you don't know where the ball's going. So for defenses, I don't know how you prepare. I don't know who the wide receiver 1 is most of the time. You don't know who's going to get more targets in a game or who's going to run that go route or catch the game-winning catch or who they're going to look to on a 4th down. So this offense is going to be lethal, even without Tyreek. And who knows, maybe they're even better. Let's go to let's talk Green Bay and at Minnesota. The Vikings took this one 23-7. Player of the game for this game, Justin Jefferson, 9 receptions for 184 yards, 2 touchdowns. Pretty sure he had the fantasy performance of the day. And then Kirk Cousins played well. Dalvin Cook had a good game. But the story of this game wasn't really the Vikings that much. It was more the Packers and their offense or lack thereof. The Packers were shut out in the first half, and Rodgers was sacked 4 times this game. So it's hard to be successful from the pocket when you're not really able to get off passes or you don't have time to be efficient down the field. And also, there were young wide receivers who we've highlighted all throughout the offseason who weren't able to make plays down the field, whether it was drops or mistakes. There was a receiver that dropped the ball down the right sideline, wide open, who would have had a walk-in touchdown, but just ball went through his hands, and you could tell Rodgers was not happy. Or whether it was a route in the flat and a receiver just doesn't turn his head. I mean, for a veteran quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, it's going to be how he can kind of coach these guys up and whether or not they can improve throughout the season. And that'll be definitive of whether or not the Packers are successful in 2022. I mean, I did pick them to win the North, so I'm betting on them to be successful this season. And then let's move on to Las Vegas. The Raiders at the Chargers. The Chargers took this one 24-19. Derek Carr had 3 interceptions. And kind of the story of the game was Vegas was not able to cash in on any field position. They were able to turn the ball over, or they were able to force the Chargers to turn the ball over a couple times, but they weren't able to score off of turnovers, and that was kind of the reason why they couldn't win today. However, Devonte Adams did have a great first game wearing the silver, or the black and silver. He had 10 receptions for 141 yards and a touchdown. So he played great, even though they lost. Justin Herbert played great in a winning effort. He had almost 280 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then Khalil Mack playing great against his former team. He had 3 sacks, sacking his former quarterback, Derek Carr. So that was fun to watch. And then obviously my favorite game of the day, as a New York Giants fan, the Giants beating the Titans in Week 1, 21-20. They beat them on the road in Tennessee, which was amazing to watch. And it was probably the most fun game for me to watch. They this Giants team, just this whole staff feels different. There's more confidence. There's more swag. You're just trusting your best players. Saquon Barkley had an incredible day. He had 18 attempts for 164 yards and a touchdown. I think a year ago that's something we were begging the coaching staff to do. And as many times as they said, well, we're going to try and get him the ball, we're going to try and get him the ball in space, we're going to put him at receiver, we're going to whatever, it just never happened. And in this game, I mean, they were trusting Saquon Barkley every time they got a chance, and then they were trusting Daniel Jones, which was amazing to see. Daniel Jones threw for a couple touchdowns and was able to run a couple bootlegs and convert on 4th down in that game-winning drive and make big plays. And this team's going to be fun. I mean, we saw Brian Daboll not even yelling, but getting into Daniel Jones' face when he threw an interception in the red zone that almost cost the Giants the game. And so I think this team is going to be like a storyline to watch this whole season. I'm not sure that they can go worst to first in the NFC East, but honestly, if there is any division that a team could go worst to first in, I don't know why it couldn't be the Giants. Especially if they can get going with Saquon Barkley. I mean, they obviously play a whole bunch of division games against teams that are games that are definitely winnable. The Cowboys we'll get to them in a second, but who knows what the extent of the Dak Prescott's hand injury is. Who knows if their injuries are significant or not. And then the Eagles are going to be good. And then the Commanders. I don't think anyone knows what the Commanders are just yet. But yeah, this Giants team, this is the first opening week win in 6 years. So it's definitely a step in the right direction. It's probably, who knows if it's indicative of whether or not they're going to have a crazy year. But it's a good feeling as a Giant fan. And then the penalties is something they got to look out for. That has to improve. You can't take a bazillion penalties. It honestly almost cost them the game when the Titans almost drove down the field. Or let's backtrack. The Giants scored a touchdown with around a minute left. They were down 20-13. They scored the touchdown, made it 20-19, and Brian Daboll made a really ballsy decision going for 2 instead of taking the game-tying extra point. They'd already missed one earlier in the day, so he elected to go for 2. Daniel Jones looked like he was going to bootleg to the right again, just as he had done for the touchdown pass. Instead, he pitched it to Saquon Barkley, who cut into the end zone, or made 2 guys miss and then cut into the end zone. So it was a great play. But back to the Giants' penalties. The Titans were struggling to move down the field, but got bailed out twice after Giants holding penalties down the field by cornerbacks. So if you're going to win games and trust your defense, then the penalties have to be limited because it nearly cost you the game. The Titans did have a chance to win late in the game with time expiring. They drove down the field they gave themselves a 48-yard chance at a game-winning field goal and just pushed it wide left. So, exciting win for the Giants. mid-performance by the Titans. Tannehill threw for 266 yards and 2 touchdowns. Not a crazy performance by Derrick Henry, but yeah, this Titans team didn't look like the 1 seed they were a year ago. So we'll see if this team can rebound coming into week 2. So yeah, then the feature matchup of today, the Sunday Night Football game. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers took on the Dallas Cowboys. I was watching that game as I was kind of planning for this, so my stats might be a little off just because I wasn't able to watch the tail end of the game. But Micah Parsons played a great game. He had 2 sacks. So that was he's a fun player to watch. He's fun. He really plays sideline to sideline and is super quick and just gets after the quarterback like it's nobody's business. And he can also diagnose plays like it's crazy. Even he was even diagnosing plays that Tom Brady was calling straight from the line, and it was so fun to watch. In the first half, the score going into halftime was 12-3. So there were 5 made field goals. I think kickers in the first half went 5 for 5. So they were actually impressive. Even though the story of the day was, excuse me, the story of the day was kind of kickers missing kicks in overtime and game-winning kicks and all that jazz. And then coming into tonight, the story of the game was kickers being very successful. Yeah, and then for the Bucs, Tom Brady coming back for year 23, always impressive. He became the oldest quarterback to start a game in the NFL at 45 years and I think 39 days. So obviously that record's going to get broken every week from here on out. But Tom Brady looked good. He makes playing quarterback look so easy, man. He calls plays at the line like it's no one's business. He reads defenses better than anyone else. Maybe Aaron Rodgers is up there, but Tom Brady's so smart and so good at what he does, and I think we all just have to appreciate greatness when we see it week in and week out, because we're obviously not sure how much longer we have to watch, or how many more seasons we have to watch him. So I think we got to all be very appreciative of what he's been able to provide to football for the last 23 years. And then the Dak Prescott in the fourth quarter, just before I switched to recording, I saw Dak got hurt. He got hit in his throwing hand a couple times. So we, as of right now when I'm recording, we don't know the significance of his injury. I'm not sure that we'll know even tomorrow. Hopefully we know tomorrow. But we'll see. I mean, the Bucs won 19-3. The Cowboys weren't able to score a touchdown. So I think without Dak, I mean, who knows what their chances in the East are if they're without Dak for a significant amount of time. But we don't wish injury on anyone, and I hope to see Dak back next week with the Cowboys. So, just some quick awards. Wanted to do this each week. I think this will be fun to keep up with. So, first award is the game of the week. I think it has to be the Steelers and the Bengals. Obviously, the play wasn't top-notch, and there were a lot of turnovers, a lot of penalties, and missed kicks. But it was thrilling. The missed kicks made for an incredible game to watch. And it was fun from the start to the finish. The Steelers having all the momentum, just for the Bengals to come back and kind of kill all of it in the fourth quarter, and then to go into overtime for both kickers to miss. It was fun watching them trade blows. So that has to be the game of the week so far. The MVP of the week, for me, it has to be Minka Fitzpatrick. He had an interception against Joe Burrow. I think it was a pick six, and then he also blocked the extra point to send that game to overtime. So, shout out Minka Fitzpatrick. He's the first MVP of the week for Move Those Chains. And then the other award I wanted to give out for the day comes from the same game, but was the Disappointment of the Week award. player who I think we all had higher expectations for, but just underperformed in week 1, in my opinion, has to be Joe Burrow. I mean, he just looked rusty, understandably rusty, but I think it's kind of an easy one to pick, considering he threw 4 interceptions, turned the ball over 5 times, and although they were still in the game, they couldn't put together a game-winning drive. So, yeah, I'll take Joe Burrow for disappointment of the week. Hopefully he proves me wrong next week and comes out with a better game. So, lastly, let's take a look into the Monday Night Football matchup we have tomorrow night. By the time this is released, it'll be tonight. The Denver Broncos are taking on the Seahawks. I think the big thing everyone's looking forward to in this matchup, Russell Wilson's making his return to Seattle after being traded this past offseason to the Broncos. I'm excited to hear the reception he gets from the 12th man in Seattle. I think it'll be a really nice a really nice ovation he's going to get. He won a ring there. Went to 2 Super Bowls and had a whole bunch of success. They weren't able to put a winning product on the field for the last year or year and a half of his tenure there, but I would expect an incredible standing ovation. I wouldn't be shocked if there were some emotions there. I do think I'm going to make a prediction on this game. I mean, this one's not a tough one in my opinion, but I think Denver's going to steamroll the Seahawks tomorrow night. I mean, from top to bottom, the Denver Broncos are a better team on paper and should be on the field. This Seahawks team is going to struggle this season, and I'm not sure Pete Carroll is going to get the winning type of football that he's been used to through his time in Seattle. I mean, their starting quarterback right now is Geno Smith. I'm not sure that Geno Smith is going to be able to prove to be a winning quarterback in a tough NFC West. But yeah, that just about wraps up this episode of Move Those Chains, kind of the first real episode of Move Those Chains. Yeah, so the Week 1 recap podcast, we're going to call an end to it right now. Had a great time talking about football, and hopefully next week I have a guest on for y'all who can help talk about some football, recap Week 2, maybe prep Week 2 if y'all are into that. We'll get into all of that come then. Keep up on Laz Sports. I'll be posting some updates throughout the week about timing, when stuff is coming out, and all that jazz. I have some other content coming out. It's called Strictly Auburn. We talk Auburn football because I'm an Auburn student. Talk all about Auburn game day, Auburn football, all that stuff. So we have a lot of fun on there with Eagle Eye TV. It's a whole bunch of it's a good time. But yeah, thanks for joining episode 2, and I look forward to talking to y'all next week. Peace.